copy of his original drum set from 1983. Sizes are all the same, with the addition of the Stewart Copeland signature snare drum. I don't know if you can see, it's got a special Stewart Copeland designed logo. Great sounding snare drum, very bright, very sharp, tuned really tight, gives you a real loud, can take a lot of punishment. Another new item is the signature hi-hat. 12-inch, very tight, very sharp, very quick, clicky sound. If you hold it down real tight, hit it at the bell. The hi-hat is very important in the Copeland lexicon of sounds. Stewart took the hi-hat to another level. In other words, instead of just using it as a straight, he would do things where he would add extra strokes. The other thing that's very unique about Stewart's drums are octavons. It's a unique Stewart Copeland signature, the octavons. They made these special for him. They have a very tight, very responsive sound. Another, I suppose, signature drum effect or drum sound that Stewart reintroduced back in the late 70s was the splash cymbals. Used by big band drummers back in the 20s, 30s. This one's a little more special. This is a little ice bell. 8-inch bell. Ring's quite long, actually. Part of the Copeland sound is not only the way he attacks the drums and the way the drums are tuned, but the way he feels rhythm, which is Stewart's signature, I suppose. He thinks of things and feels things in a very syncopated, offbeat, very unique way. And that, I would say, of all the elements of the sound of the drums, the way he attacks the drums, the way he feels the rhythm.
Hi folks, we're here with Jeff Seitz, and I can't even begin to tell you this gentleman's track record. So I'm just going to turn it over to him and let him just explain a little bit of his resume. Okay, guys?
Music in 4th grade. A little bit, band people come around and they give you auditions and they try you out and they give you aptitude tests and I put down drums like half the kids in the class.
You know right away.
Yeah, and half the kids in the class put down drums, including some of the girls. But and then got a private teacher in, I guess it was 5th grade, and started playing. He was showing me different things to do, and every time he showed me something, I could do it. And he said, "Well, try this," and I said, "Okay, try this and try this." So I think it became pretty clear at that point that I either had natural ability or I had pretty good hand coordination, because everything he would say, "Wow, you can do that? Okay." So I, went up through the school system, played in grade school band, discovered rock and roll on American Bandstand. For all you people out there, it's an old music show. And just fell in love with rock and roll and that whole genre of music, and played in marching band, and then went up into high school and played in marching band, and then heard my first rock and roll band at a school dance.
Okay.
And when I heard a guy sitting behind the drum set bashing and banging away, it was like, oh my God, I got to do that. Because it was just, and he was having so much fun. This drummer was just having the best time, and he was just slamming away, and everybody was enjoying it. Everybody was like over by the dance floor hanging with the girls. I'm sitting next to him.
Watching
him.
The groupie, early groupie.
Silver Slingerland drum set, and that's like, I got to have that. And I was listening to, a lot of rock and roll, The Ventures and people like that, instrumental music. And of course, all the big hits that were out of the day, a lot of girl bands, a lot of soul music. And marching band became or concert orchestra, and started taking private lessons. And when I was graduating high school, my private teacher said, "So what are you going to do when you get out of school?" I'm like, "I don't know, work in a music store, play in a band? He goes, well, you ever think about going to school for music? And I went, there's schools for music? And he said, yeah, there's a school called Juilliard in New York, and I know the teachers. He picks up the phone and he calls up Saul Goodman and says, hey, Saul, I'm going to send one of my boys down. Keep an eye out for him. And I was like, I had no idea what that meant in the world of classical music, percussion. I prepared an audition piece. You had to prepare 3 pieces, one on snare drum, one on percussion, one on xylophone, marimba, and then one on timpani. Did my audition, got in, and was thrust into a whole new world of classical music that I didn't even know existed. I mean, my dad always listened to opera, and he was a big romantic opera. He loved Tchaikovsky and Liszt and Puccini, but that didn't really resonate with me all that much because it was a lot of big bellowing and that kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, the music. So when I got into Juilliard, and I walked up to the 6th floor percussion floor, and there were guys in the hallway, because instruments would be everywhere. They'd be in the hallway, in the practice rooms, and there's guys on marimbas playing Bach 4-part toccata and fugues and partitas with 4 mallets, and I could play like the saber dance because I memorized it, on my xylophone. I went, oh boy, I'm really in it now. I actually, after the first year, I really considered leaving and going home, and as our band directors used to say, woodshed. Go out in the woodshed and really, practice and get good. But I stuck it out. I didn't take a lot of courses. I just took music diploma course. I didn't take any academics. And when I wasn't in the classroom, I was sitting on a practice pad or sitting on the timpani or working on my scales. And I made it through the first and second year, and then eventually the school moved from where we were up on 125th Street down to Lincoln Center, which was Leonard Bernstein's vision for Lincoln Center, was to have all the performing arts there, including the school. So I made the cut, which was like, whew. And I ended up studying with Saul Goodman for 3 years, one of the greatest timpanists. I was in the New York Philharmonic for 40 years, and I was playing rock and roll on the weekends, still, had my ear for rock and roll. I actually stopped playing in the band for about a year and a half to concentrate on school because I just felt like I really needed to, buckle down. But and then the band started taking off. We started becoming, quite popular and big in the area. Started making a lot of money. Juilliard was great. I, passed all my exams. I finished 5 years, and thought I'd come back to this, someday. But it's not like that. And just went on to do some tours. Toured in America and Canada with an English blues artist named Long John Baldry. Did various local things, local sessions, was signed to Bill Graham Management with a friend of ours, and got an offer to go on the road with the Police as a truck driver and a drum roadie. And I thought, what the heck, it'll be fun, 2 weeks, what do you got to lose? Little did I know, one of their English crew who had come over had given his notice, like the day after he arrived with all the equipment. And so we went to the first show, and they said, hey, we're doing this world tour. You got a passport? And I happened to have a passport. And they said, well, we're doing this world tour, and, one of our guys just quit. We need another guy. You want to go? And I thought, paid to go around the world.
Yeah.
Let me think about that.
Tough decision.
So I said, yeah, I got my passport photos. I went on the road. By the time we got to Japan, I was given the drummer, drummers always got the new guy on the crew. So it was always like, you always had to come in and fix the drums and reset things, because nobody gave crap about the drums. There was too much stuff to, and to get it right, a drummer is very particular about all his angles, all his stands, all his playing positions. So I just said, I'm going to give this guy the kind of service I always wanted, first class all the way, And by the time we got to Japan, he was like, told the tour manager, get this guy.
He knew right away.
I had things going on, but there was nothing pressing, so I thought, what the heck. Steady salary, on the road, off the road, big band, and then...
Major, sure.
And then before you know it, Zenyatta Mondatta came out, and they were skyrocketing, into the clouds. And so I just kept staying on because it was like, it was great. It was a lot of fun. I was getting to see the real big concert side of it. So, and everybody's always asked me, well, how could you stop playing? How could you stop playing and do that? I was like, well, it was still music.
Right, you're around.
I was working with great musicians. The police are
big time,
totally professional, accomplished musicians. They're dedicated to their art, and it was like, being in the band, because I was there in the beginning, and I was part of the entourage, the inner circle. I went in the studio with them. I was there for writing sessions. I was there, all the time.
Everything.
And then, the tour ended. The big tours ended, and I came back to New Jersey. I was working in some local bands, doing demos, trying to get a record deal, and making pretty good progress. Got in a few, local tribute bands, cover bands, whatever. And Stewart Copeland called me up and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm doing this, doing that." He says, "You want to come over to England and work in my studio? Because I just lost my engineer." And that was always a dream of mine too, to work in the studio, because even in my band Godspeed, I was always involved with the sound. I was building snakes. I was putting the board out in front. We were one of the first bands to put our board out in front and have a sound man. And then we got a really great sound man, and he started taking over everything. But I always had my fingers in it. And even between tours with Long John Baldry, when I would come off the road, there was no retainers, no bonuses, nothing. It was just like, "See ya. We'll call you when we're."
Where's your next
And I'd be
meal?
like, well, "Where am I going to go?"
Yeah.
So a friend of mine who owned an audio company in New Jersey named Tom Herman was supplying all the bands in New Jersey with sound gear. So he had sound positions open. So he would get me sound jobs with local bands. I did sound for Cats on a Smooth Surface, the E. Walker Band, various local bands, and was able to, make some good money until I had to go back on the road. And it was during one of those down periods that I got the police offer, and I didn't have a sound job, so I took that job, and the rest was history. So I ended up in the studio with Stewart working on a film called The Rhythmatist, which he shot in Africa, traveling through Africa, sampling pygmies and Samburu and Maasai warriors and all kinds of stuff. And he was putting a score together with it, and we were synchronizing sound and video, and I was learning a big full mixing console. So it was a real education.
Wow.
It was exciting, And we did that, and then he got an offer to do a television show. We did The Equalizer, which was a TV show out of New York. We did a few features, and before you know it, he was into full-time scoring feature films, and past 17, 18, 20 years, that's pretty much been my, thing. Recording, mixing, editing, sampling, just general studio work. And coming back to New Jersey every once in a while and jamming with friends.
Still getting into it. And doing
Yeah, and I'm actually thinking about, going back. I mean, at this point in my career, might be a little late, but I'm really enjoying playing again, and Stewart's kind of backed off. So he's doing mostly just artistic projects. He's writing operas, writing symphonies. We just did a big symphonic thing down in Virginia where he rescored the silent film, 1925 version of Ben-Hur.
Wow.
And it was performed with the screen behind the orchestra with a 70-piece orchestra. Stewart has his drums on right up in front of the stage, and he's playing drums and percussion going back and forth. So that's the kind of thing he's into now. So I need to look to other pastures.
And start playing. That's fine. But now, Jeff, let me ask something. How important, like you being a Juilliard guy, for kids, you have advice, like kids in now, in this kind of day and age where technology is, like everything's yesterday and everything's changing so fast now. You know what I mean? Like, what is your opinion, like, or advice you can give to any musician today? Like, how important is it to learn the education? How important is it to study, to take lessons, in your opinion, to learn to be a musician? I mean, like, do you have advice for kids that you can just give them to for moving forward? I don't know how to really explain it right, but it's like we're in just such a changing area. It's kind of like a
fast technology. Everybody's on their computers and iPods and and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
That's a whole new era, a whole new world. I got totally into that when I was working with Stewart. He wrote everything on a computer.
Okay.
Everything. He knew music. He has a fantastic ear. He can pick out a note on a keyboard and go, "No, I want that note." And
he knows exactly what it. Wow.
But he does. When he started out, he didn't write music. He didn't understand that whole world. But he could program. So he programmed everything, And as long as you have an ear for music, technology will give you the tools to achieve what you need to achieve. But as far as playing an instrument, and he'd be the first one to tell you, he studied with big band drummers, he studied and learned all the licks, all the accents, all the chops, because his dad was a big band drummer, a big band trumpet player, sorry. So he took lessons and he worked on his craft. And I think the main thing is when you take lessons, you not only learn about your instrument, you learn about life. You learn about yourself and how you respond to other people, other people's instructions, and the tools. For myself, I was obsessive compulsive as a drummer. I would spend hours and hours and hours going through the rudiments, going through doing exercises, and for me, what it gave me was the ability and the foundation to, when I was out playing with other people, to be able to do whatever I thought of at the time, or whatever somebody said, hey, do this. My hands were ready to do it, because I spent all that time and I got the instruction from a teacher who said, if you just work on this for however many times, it'll get ingrained in. And it's sort of like, kids today, they do a lot of programming on the computer, and it's like programming your brain. Doing scales on a guitar. It seems boring. It seems almost fruitless. For me, it like I said, it was almost an obsession to see how well I could do it, how fast I could do it, how precise I could do it. And then, because once you have those skills and those formations in your mind and in your hand, when you want to execute something that you just think of on the spot, boom, it's there. So in that respect, musical instruction and not just on one instrument. I studied piano at Juilliard because you had to minor in a second instrument if you were an orchestral player, if you were a soloist, an opera singer or something, you had to minor in piano, and if you were a pianist, you had to minor in voice. So get the well-rounded thing, not just strictly your instrument, study other instruments and find out what's going on there, because you might learn something in listening to that. You may not like it. You may not be your cup of tea. It may not be something that you're emotionally moved by, but you may learn something just by studying that instrument. And teachers have, teachers can bring things to light that, there's a lot of online studying going on, a lot of Skype lessons and things like that. So that's also a world that's opened up to kids. Mm-hmm. But they can take you places that you might not have ever thought of before, and I think it's an invaluable experience, an invaluable learning lesson, just for what it gives you as a person and as a musician.
Yeah, and I guess you'd agree. The nice thing about that is it's something that you have to work at, and whatever you put into it, you're going to get out of it.
You get back.
So people realize you worked hard to get what you do.
Every single thing you get back.
Yeah.
And I'm finding now, I haven't played drums in, like steady.
Right.
Working at it. I would always jam. We had friends in LA we would jam with. But I really started to sit down and really work on my exercises and my rudiments. And at first it was like, oh man. But after a while, I said, wow, I can do that again. And I can do it better than I did it before.
The dexterity's back. And all that.
It's coming back. It's a little painful, but it comes back, And I myself wouldn't turn down an opportunity to study with another teacher, just because there's that give and
connection
take.
to get back into it.
And not only taking lessons, but teaching yourself. As a teacher, if you play an instrument, teach somebody else to do what you're doing, because you'll find that by analyzing how to explain it to somebody else, you'll learn something yourself. You'll analyze something that you've maybe never thought of. It's like, hey, I do that. Well, how do I really do that? Even if you're a beginner or an intermediate, if you have a little brother or a sister who's learning something, try to teach them, because it'll make you even more aware of what you're doing. So I grew up taking lessons. I took lessons, private lessons. I took lessons at school with the high school teachers. And then I went on to Juilliard. And even when I was at Juilliard, I studied with some of the senior students of some of the teachers.
Wow.
because they had things to offer. Because they were young, we had
You're
things
absorbing
in
all
common.
everything.
And I studied big band drumming with Sonny Igo because I wanted to keep my drum chops going because I was mainly playing timpani and mallets and things. And boom, a whole nother vista opened up to me. So I would say study with everybody.
Whatever you can. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. I appreciate taking the
it's a
time
pleasure.
to talk to
Yeah.
me about it and educate it to the new people, the young kids, the musicians, get everybody out there and get aware of it. Guys, just go online and you can look up Jeff Seitz. Incredible. The guy's got a track record. This is from Encore Chat. Take care. Really put an effort in to learn an instrument. It's so, so important. Thanks again for lending an ear. Thanks for stopping in to Encore Chat. I'm Pete Schmeeds, that owns a small little store called Schmeeds Music, 831 Route 10 East in the Pine Plaza Shopping Center in Whippany, New Jersey. Thanks, guys, and stay in touch to see more videos to come.